February 26, 1972, 8 a.m., Buffalo Creek, West Virginia. Billy Aldridge has just finished a double shift at the mine. Exhausted after working all night hauling coal from deep underground, he is getting ready to sleep when the phone rings. It's the National Guard. Residents are calling, worried the dam might break. They want Billy to check on it. Billy isn't concerned. He has heard these same fears for years, has swum in dam number 1, watched the structures hold through heavy rains. He gets dressed anyway and drives up the narrow valley toward the mine. What he doesn't know is that 132 million gallons of toxic black water is about to come roaring down Buffalo Creek at 30 miles per hour. In the next few minutes, he will witness the beginning of one of the most preventable disasters in American history. As Billy drives toward the dam, he sees something that makes no sense. A red and white Chevy Nova, airborne, 75 feet off the ground. It crashes into the mountainside. Billy spins his truck around and floors the accelerator, horn blaring, leaning out the window. The dam broke. Get out. The dam broke. Behind him, a 30-foot wall of black water is destroying everything in its path. To understand what happened on February 26, 1972, we need to go back to the beginning, to understand what Buffalo Creek was before the black water came. Buffalo Creek sits in Logan County, West Virginia, deep in coal country. In 1972, this narrow valley was home to nearly 5,000 people spread across 16 small communities: Saunders, Pardee, Laredo, Lundale, Croneco. In some places, there was barely room for a road and one row of houses. About 1,000 men worked directly for the Pittston Coal Company's Buffalo Creek mine. Many others lived on mine pensions after decades underground. Some sold equipment to the mine or ran stores that served the miners. The houses they lived in were originally built by the mining company as temporary structures, but families had been buying them for years, slowly turning them into real homes. These weren't wealthy people. A miner named Garfield Adkins had worked the same seam for 20 years. His kids went to school with the children of the mine superintendent's secretary. Everyone knew everyone. Families had lived in this valley for generations. It was a hard life, but it was theirs. At the head of the valley, the Pittston Coal Company had built 3 dams to contain waste from their coal washing operations. They weren't engineered structures. They were built by dumping coal refuse, black sludge, mining waste, chemical runoff directly across the stream bed, then spreading it flat with a bulldozer. The black water pooled behind them, held back by nothing more than compacted waste. Up close, dam number 3 looked like what it was: a mountain of dark, saturated refuse. It seeped. After rain, it glistened. There were no concrete faces, no engineered spillways, no drainage systems. Just a mass of mining waste holding back millions of gallons of poisoned water. Dam number 1 was built in 1964. Dam number 2 in 1966. Dam number 3, the largest and most dangerous, began construction in 1969. By 1972, it stood over 90 feet high and held back millions of gallons of coal slurry, a toxic mixture of water, coal particles, and chemicals. None were properly engineered. There were no real plans, just a rough sketch. No studies of the local geology, no analysis of how much water they could safely hold. They were built by dumping waste and spreading it with a bulldozer. That was it. Dam number 1 had already failed once in 1967. False alarms about dam failures were common. Every heavy rain brought fear to the valley below. And yet the people with the most confidence in the dams were often those who worked on them every day. They had swum in the reservoirs. They had built these structures with their own hands. They couldn't imagine that something they had made would simply cease to exist. On February 22, 1972, it began to rain. Heavy, steady rain that continued for days. By February 25th, the ground was so saturated that miners couldn't reach work because of landslides. The water behind dam number 3 was rising steadily. Some residents were worried enough to leave. People in Saunders were evacuating. They feared the dam would break. Steve Dasovich, the mine's general manager, had been monitoring the water level. He knew it was rising dangerously. Jack Kent, who ran strip mining operations, had already told Dasovich the dam's stability concerned him. At 7 a.m. on February 26th, when the local sheriff and National Guard called, company officials told them there was nothing to worry about. The dam was fine. Go back to sleep. 1 hour later, dam number 3 no longer existed. At 8 a.m., dam number 3 fails. Billy Aldridge is driving toward the dam when he sees the Nova flying through the air. He spins his truck around and races back down the valley, horn blaring, screaming out his window. At the Osborne house, Atla hears Billy's horn and comes to the porch. She sees the flood and gets her family up the hillside. They survive. At the Dempsey house, no one comes to the door. Alicia and Willie Dempsey are both swept to their deaths. Billy continues down the valley. 2 cars are driving toward him. Albert Hedinger stops when he hears the horn. He gets out of his car to see what's happening. The black water engulfs him. At the Trent house, Billy yells for Herbert and his Uncle Gene to get out. Herbert runs to unleash their dogs and saves himself by grabbing a sycamore tree as the water takes him, holds on, hand over hand, bark tearing at his palms until the surge passes. Gene goes inside to warn the rest of the family, Johnny, James, Deli, and Wanda. They all die. Billy reaches his own home and tells his wife to call the National Guard. Then he runs back into the street, door to door. When he sees the water coming again, he runs to Charlene Doxey's house. She wants to dress her children. Billy tells her there is no time. They grab the kids and run for higher ground. While running, Billy sees Edith Boosie trying to push her husband Charles in a wheelchair. He runs back, hoists Mr. Boosie onto his back, and carries him 200 feet before falling as the water rises around them. Just then, Mr. Boosie's son appears. Together, they carry him to safety. From higher ground, they watch as the village is washed away. A kitchen table turns slowly in the current. A child's boot floats past. Home by home, the valley empties. The flood is moving at 30 miles per hour, carrying 50,000 cubic feet per second of water mixed with coal waste and debris. It is black as motor oil. It burns the eyes and the skin. The narrow valley makes everything worse. Debris creates temporary blockages that burst and release the water with renewed fury. Each community downstream faces not just the original flood, but all the accumulated wreckage from every community above it. A wave that grows heavier and more lethal with every mile. Houses simply cease to exist. The poorly built structures with little foundation disintegrate on impact. Cars, trucks, trees, and pieces of buildings become missiles. Robert Albright had just finished his shift when the mine's power went off. He and other miners walked 1.5 miles out in darkness. When he emerged, he saw the valley below and worked his way to high ground above his home in Saunders. Neighbors came to him. His wife Sylvia had been seen leaving their home with their 17-year-old son Steve and their adopted 9-month-old baby, Carrie. They fought toward the hillside together. When it was clear they wouldn't make it, Sylvia and Steve held Carrie by his arms and legs and tried to swing him to safety on higher ground. It failed. All 3 were swept downstream. Then someone came running. A baby had been found face down in the mud. Robert ran to where they were trying to revive the infant, clearing black sludge from his throat. It was Carrie. The moment Robert picked him up, the baby cried. Most weren't so fortunate. The destruction in the upper valley is total. Of 5,000 residents, 4,000 are left homeless. People gather in the few homes that sit higher in the valley. They count survivors over and over. Dogs are shot because of fear there won't be enough food. One survivor remembers a woman in the house where she took shelter. She was choking from the black water, and it appeared that every bone in her body was broken. Her body was all swollen. She was in shock, praying for God to take her. We just tried to keep her warm, cover her with blankets. She was coughing, screaming, and praying to God for her to die. The woman doesn't make it. When the water finally recedes, 125 people dead. Over 1,100 injured, 4,000 homeless, 507 homes destroyed. Total property damage, $50 million, equivalent to $340 million today. But the numbers don't capture the real loss. Families who had lived in this valley for generations are scattered. Children who played together are separated forever. What took decades to build is gone in hours. 4 days before the disaster, the dams at Buffalo Creek had been inspected and certified as safe. Gerald Stern, a young lawyer from Washington, D.C., takes on the survivors' case for free. He spends hundreds of hours interviewing Buffalo Creek residents, producing thousands of pages of testimony. This unusual approach proves vital. The legal hurdles are enormous. If Pittston can separate the local Buffalo Creek Mining Company from the parent Pittston Company in New York, it limits compensation. Stern knows he has little chance in West Virginia courts, but he successfully gets the case moved to federal court. Once Pittston realizes they can't keep the suit local and can't keep the parent company out, they settle. A few weeks before trial, they agree to pay $13.5 million. The survivors receive approximately $13,000 each. The state of West Virginia, which had sought $100 million in damages, settles for just $1 million, accepted by Governor Arch Moore with 3 days left in his term. Moore had initially appointed a commission stacked with coal industry representatives that found Pittston not at fault. He was later convicted on corruption charges and sentenced to 5 years in prison. The disaster transforms dam safety in America. It is the first U.S. dam failure since 1928 to kill more than 100 people. It leads directly to congressional hearings and the passage of the National Dam Inspection Act of 1972. Senator Henry Jackson opens those hearings with a statement that could have been written the morning of February 26th, that innumerable dams across the United States exist under no effective public control. The legislation creates the National Dam Inspection Program and gives federal authority to inspect all the nation's dams. Since new coal waste regulations were implemented in 1975, there have been no dam failures at coal waste impoundments. The dams were in violation of at least 3 state laws and federal regulations. Pittston felt free to ignore them because there would be no consequences. The cost of building a proper dam would have been between $50,000 and $200,000. Pittston was producing over 20 million tons of coal per year at premium prices. The $13.5 million settlement amounted to less than $1 per ton of production. Recent engineering analysis suggests the failure was caused by static liquefaction. The saturated materials lost their structural strength and flowed like liquid, causing rapid collapse. This wasn't well understood in 1972. It is now recognized as a major risk for any improperly built dam. Today, Buffalo Creek is quiet. The mines are closed. The population has dwindled. Wildflowers grow where homes once stood. Pittston Coal Company no longer exists. Faced with strikes and tightening regulations through the 1980s, the company restructured and rebranded. It is now known as the Brinks Company, in the business today of protecting other people's valuables. Carrie Albright, the miracle baby of Buffalo Creek, survived. Billy Aldridge saved an unknown number of lives that morning, racing down a valley he had known his whole life, horn blaring, voice raw, refusing to stop. The flood lasted hours. The cleanup lasted months. The legal battles lasted years. 125 people paid with their lives.